This tank is the Batchat 25T. This is a French Tier 10 medium tank, and the map is Himmelsdorf. Now, this is obviously a well-known tank. A lot of people have heard about this tank, and I haven't played it very long. I played it on and off over the years because of rentals for example, the Sandbox for Frontline, or during the Rampage game and the Supply Swarm game and the Domination game. But it's not a tank that I've played a lot of games with. And I'm really not used to the playing style yet. So there's a lot of things I still have to learn. I do know that it doesn't have a lot of ammo. I'm not used to the 6-shot autoloader. I'm used to having fewer shells with the AMX 13105. So just so you know, the SPG took that tank out of the game. The SPG took all of his hit points. He might have gotten ammo racked. Maybe that's the reason why. So this is one of the sniping positions that I decided to try. And it's actually pretty good. You get a pretty nice view up on that hill. There are a lot of objects that are going to block your view. One of the good things about this position is you can defend against ground targets also. You don't have to just shoot up at the hill. And these tanks, some of them are really going to expose themselves, and you'll be able to hit them in the rear, and you'll be able to set their tanks on fire. So I got my first hit. I got 413 damage on that T-34. I got a long reload. I decided that this FV-4202, he doesn't know that I'm not reloaded. So I decided that maybe I would pretend that I was reloaded. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe that was another game. So basically what I'm saying is I'm a little bit disappointed with this tank. Nice. He's dead. He's going to die. It used to be easier to hit tanks up there, but the designers, you know, they favor corridor maps, so they made it a lot more difficult. And, you know, we had to reposition. You know, we found new positions to play. So I did get 1,424 damage and 239 assistance damage because I did track that vehicle when he was damaged. The score is 9-0. So there is a vehicle that's behind a column or a portion of the castle, which I cannot hit. It scores 10-0. Okay, so let's move on to the next video. This tank is the AMX 30. This is a French Tier 9 medium tank, and the map is Prokhorovka. I am going to show you a sniping position that you can use in this game. It's a great sniping position. You're going to need a relatively fast tank. This does 50 kilometers. I love this tank. I have great games with this tank. It's a good performing tank for me. Has a pretty good gun. It's fast, etc. It's similar to the Leopard PTA. I don't like the Leopard PTA. I have horrible games with that tank, and I got rid of it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to advance through the town. We're going to get a view of the town, look at where it is on the mini-map. There's different ways you can advance through the town. You could advance along the rail. You could advance on this center road. You could advance through these houses, through the houses a little bit to the left, more to the left, over to where the canyon is, etc. You've probably got a good 6 different options on how to get through here. Some of them will give you better spotting ability. You'll be able to spot the enemy from further away. It's probably going to be this road over here, or maybe even on the far side near on the east side. Some of them are going to give you better concealment, which means driving through lots of bushes. And solid objects like houses. Some of them are going to give you defensive positions, which are going to be driving through the houses, and some of them are going to give you a wide view angle so that you can have a lot of opportunities to snipe at any vehicles that you spot. You're going to have to spot these vehicles yourself. So all of those factors have to be taken into account. I look for a route that is between the houses, lots of bushes, a good view angle once I get to the other side, can spot tanks, let me withdraw as quickly as possible. You're going to want to use autoloaders, fast-firing guns, and guns that do a lot of damage. So you can see that I came through, spotted some tanks, got my first shot in, did not get spotted. Moving to a second position wasn't the best way to reposition. I could have repositioned a little bit faster. We got a KV-5. I made a mistake. I didn't realize there was a house in front of me. Got 355 damage, and I was spotted. I'm reversing around the buildings so that they can't shoot back at me. They're no longer paying attention to me. They're heading back to where they're going. I don't know if I did damage on that tank or not. Now, all of the tanks that I spotted, they've all made it to the hill already. There were 3 tanks that made it to the hill. I got 723 damage, and I hit 2 tanks. This tank is the FV-4005. This is a British Tier 10 tank destroyer. The map is Hinterland, which is a grand battle map, and the player is WOT 3575. I am going to show you a sniping position that you can use when you play this game. I'm going to speed up a little bit so we get there a little bit sooner. He did spawn on the east side. The advantage of the east side is that they spawn a little bit further to the north and they can get a more advanced position before the enemy does. He is playing with only higher penetrating Hesh rounds. His first shot, he got 1,681 damage on an Object 268. That was 804 damage on the Object 140, and the Object 140 was taken out of the game by another tank. He's up to 2,400 damage. He's only got 20 shells. I believe this tank only had 12 shells before frontline, and they buffed it to increase the shell capacity. That was 569 damage, and he set the Super Conqueror on fire for 84 damage, plus he got 1,059 assistance damage for damaging the track of the enemy tank. You see that his team is not well represented on the east side. Most of his team went west. There's a lot of enemy tanks in front of him. And that Super Conqueror, his ally, needs to stay alive to spot for him. He's going to be in a lot of trouble if he loses that Super Conqueror. The enemy is not advancing fast enough. They're unaware of the imbalance in the game right now. That was 614 damage on the side of the turret of the E100. He's still got a long reload. He's still reloading. He's got a fast aim time. He did 620 damage on the E100. That's 4,900 damage total in the first 3 minutes of the game. So the enemy team is advancing a little bit too close for comfort. He is repositioning. He could easily take that TVP out of the game in one shot. And the TVP is obviously a larger threat than the other tanks in the game. Okay, so that's the end of this snipe position. Let's move on to the next video. This tank is the Batchat 25T. This is a French Tier 10 medium tank, and the map is Live Oaks. I am going to show you a spotting position that you can play in this game. There's a couple different variations on the position. There's a secondary position, which means that after you play the first sniping position, you relocate to the secondary position because of the way the battlefield changes. Okay, so let's see what we got right here so far. Right over here, in front of me, there is a tree with a bush. That's one of the secondary positions. You sit in that bush, and you can shoot westward down that road as tanks enter the town. So that's a secondary position that you can use. I missed the entrance because I wasn't paying attention. So you're going to want to come in here, you're going to want to knock the trees down, you're going to want to get here as quickly as you can. You're probably going to have to spot the tanks on your own. Unless you're lucky and have a great spotter, you're going to be spotting for yourself. It's good to have an autoloader, a high penetrating gun. There might be heavily armored tanks coming by, or a tank that does a lot of damage. Miss. So I got one hit, 2 hits. So I did 1,200 damage. I hit 3 tanks. Unfortunately, I received around 900 damage or 800 damage. And obviously, if you play smarter, you're not going to receive damage. There were a lot of tanks that went by. There were a lot of opportunities. So let's see what happens. Let's see if we get a chance to hit this tank. Most of the tanks are going to swiftly go to town, so you're not going to be able to hit them. And I'm not loaded anyway. So now you notice that I'm advancing to a secondary position to shoot down this alley. Let's take a look at the alley. I recommend that you get closer to the house so you don't get shots coming that way. You can sit over there where behind this tree where that bush is. You can go between these 2 houses. You can sit over there. There's some bushes over there. And let's see what happens. One of the reasons why I recommend you be closer to the house is because if he gets hit, he knows you're here, he's going to turn his gun. If in the position I am, he doesn't have to turn his gun as far. If I'm closer to the house, he has to turn his gun further, which is an advantage to you and disadvantage to him. So you can see I did 1,900 damage. I got 5 hits from this position. Enemy tank showed up. The Conway showed up. I bounced 600. Normally, a tank like the Conway does not show up in this position. That's not good. Since I'm leaving, let's move on to the next video. This tank is the Grille 15. This is a German Tier 10 tank destroyer. And the map is Nebelberg, which is a grand battle map. This game is not being played by me. It's being played by Gunmaster 1. Okay, so we're going to show you a sniping position that you can use when you play this game. I'm going to advance the game a little bit. So you can see that this position is somewhat central on the southeast side. He got a nice shot in for 827 damage and 297 the spotting damage on the Batchat. You can get access to tanks as they travel through that gap. It's easy to get to this position. You get to it very quickly, and you can spot some of the enemy tanks, so you don't need to have a spotter working for you. So that's 768 damage on the T110E5. You got solid cover to defend yourself in case you get spotted. It's a really good position. I really like this position so far. That was 695 damage on the 113. So using this position, you can really soften up enemy tanks while they're on their way to battle. You really want to advance as close to the edge as possible. Every inch is going to count when you're trying to spot those enemy tanks that are crossing that gap. You can see that there were 2 other tanks right in front of him. So he got 950 damage on the Jagdpanzer E100, plus he got a kill. He's already up to 3,200 damage, and it's only been 2 minutes, the first 2 minutes of the game. Nice. 669 damage on the Leopard 1, plus 199 spotting damage. So he's got 634 spotting damage, 3,900 damage. That must have been a blind shot, someone shooting into that area. So now he knows that there must be an enemy sniper who's watching his position. His team does control the middle of the map, which means he's going to have fewer targets to shoot at. That was 362 damage on the Leopard 1, and it was also his second kill. There's a 121 that is vulnerable in the middle of the map. Unfortunately, he didn't become unspotted, so the E50 was able to hit him. He's still lining up to shoot at that 121. Let's see if he can get something. He might have... Oh, it looks like he does have a chance. That was 740 damage, and it looks like he was not spotted. And because the 121 is stuck out in the open, he's probably going to get a second shot. That was 734 damage on the 121. And he also was not spotted on the second shot. That was 743 damage on the Centurion AX. He's up to 6,500 damage. Oh, he just barely missed that Object 268. He might still have a chance at hitting him. Did 670 damage on the Progetto 65. It's up to 7,100 damage. So it's likely that it looks like there's 3 or 4 enemy tanks in that position, and it's likely that they're going to take up those positions. So it is possible he's going to get shots on those tanks in the future. Scores 13-12. He only took 1 hit so far. So that IS-7 is the front line on this flank for the enemy team. And his team is advancing, which means there is a chance that the enemy might have to retreat through that gap. There's a T-57 heavy in the middle of the map that he might be able to hit. So you can see that the IS-7 is starting to retreat or pull back. And you can see his allies are advancing on that flank. He is doing a mission TD-15 for the Object 260. I happen to notice, because I'm working on the same mission, it's the last mission I need for an Object 260. I happen to notice that there's a counter at the top showing almost 8,000 damage. You need 8,000 damage in order to get the TD-15, and you can definitely do it on this map, as he's going to show you. He is going to get over 10,000 damage in this game. Oh, he got it. 733 damage on the Object 268, and he wasn't spotted. And plus he got 372 spotting damage on the WZ-132 light tank. That would have been an amazing shot if he had gotten it. It's too bad he missed that. I could see that coming. Even though he's not being spotted, it's still a good habit to reposition. And the reason why is because there is a delay for 6 cents. And if you wait for the delay, you are in danger for an additional 2 seconds or so. The disadvantage is he does have to wait longer for his camo net to turn on. The camo net does make a difference, and I do recommend it. Since I've been using the camo net, I've been spotted a lot less often while I'm sniping. The remaining tanks are going to be out of his spotting range, and his team is not advancing anymore. Some of them may be low on hit points. They're perhaps not equipped for advancing, or they're weakly armored tanks. Looks like there's an IS-7 back there on full health that's not advancing, and his other allies are probably not going to advance. Scores 19-5. And it's a mistake, because he is in a great position, and I don't think his allies understand what a great position he is and how much damage he can do. The IS-7 that's sitting back there is suggesting that he wants to advance, and he wants his allies to cover him. Okay, so this is the end of that sniping position. Let's move on to the next video. This tank is a Jagdtiger. This is a German Tier 9 tank destroyer, and the map is Empire's Border. In the assault defend mode, I'm on the defending team. One thing I would like to point out is that my understanding is that the assault defend mode is being removed in patch 1.4. This is currently patch 1.3. So you may not have this mode when you play, when you watch this video, but you can still use this position nonetheless, even though it might not be as frequent. One thing about this tank is I'm actually pretty good at playing it, and I feel very comfortable playing it because I have the Tier 8 Premium Jagdtiger 8.8, and it's one of my most played tanks, and I bought it the first month I started playing World of Tanks around, I don't know, maybe it was 5 years ago. I'm telling my team that there's too many people on the west side, and I decided to relocate to the east side, so I'm going to speed up. This tank is okay. It's not amazing. It's a good tank. It doesn't have that super high damage and super high penetration that the Tier 10 does, but it is pretty good. So there's a couple different positions that you can play over here. If we play in this position, there's another 8.8 right next to me. We're not going to get a lot of damage because the enemy tanks are going to be afraid to come around, and a lot of enemy tanks are going to retreat if they're not having a good game. So you might want to move to a new position, for example, where the 45 TP is and where the Panther is advancing to. There is room for 3 tanks over here, and there's a chance that one of those tanks might leave the position. So you can see I'm in this hull down position over here. The trees are going to block me from being spotted. You want to use high explosive rounds. I loaded the high explosive rounds because these guys are only going to show the turrets of their tanks. They're going to be hull down, or they might side scrape. I'm not going to have good shots on them. I am a higher tier tank, so I could use AP rounds. They are likely to penetrate against a lot of those tanks. I wasn't happy with what I was seeing, so I decided to reposition. It does look like you can comfortably fit 4 tanks in this position. So I'm going to knock down these trees over here to increase my cover. And this is, of course, the best position because you're going to have the most targets from here. So that was high explosive rounds. I didn't do a lot of damage. Did 167 damage. Did 172 on the side scraper, which was a T-29, which would have bounced otherwise. I did 258 on the Tiger P. I could be doing 490 with AP rounds. That one we don't know. So here's a hull down tank. Let's see what we can get. I got 224. He actually has a bad angle right there. He's angling a little bit too much. That's a really bad angle. I hit him for 127. That's a bad angle. I hit him for 134. I decided to shoot for his ammo rack, which is going to increase his reload time. And he was disabled. So I got 1,082 damage. There might have been an extra hit in there, plus 781 spotting damage. A lot of it was on the IS and on an Object 430. So we've got some more tanks over there. One of which might be a Tier 9 tank, and the other one might be a Tier 7 tank. We're well defended. We got most of our hit points. I only did 22 damage. That's the disadvantage of using high explosive rounds. So we got a lot of hit points. There's a good chance that the enemy is going to retreat. And of course, if the enemy retreats, his sniping position is no longer useful. But the good thing about this position is you can actually shoot up at the base. For example, there's a T-30 up at the base who's capping right now, and there's a good chance that I could just swing around up there and hit him. You can see right there that T-30 just popped into view, and I missed my chance to shoot at him because I wasn't paying attention. Right there, he's in view. I'm going to advance. So here's the point where I realize I'm going to take a shot at this base. And this is all part of the learning. You have to learn how to play the game. I didn't realize that I was able to shoot from this position. But now this is going to make this position one of the stronger positions. We're going to have to test where the M12 is, for example, to see if you can hit up on the cap from where the M12 is or from the other positions nearby. Now, one of the issues is you can only hit those tanks if they're really, really aggressive. If they're sitting back, they can still cap without being exposed. Okay, so now this is outside of the scope of the sniping position. Let's move on to the next video. This tank is the Su-101. This is a Russian Tier 8 tank destroyer, and the map is Paris. Now, this is obviously a rear-mounted a rear-turreted or a rear-mounted tank destroyer, and there is a problem. They are problematic because the engine damages easily and they catch fire easily. And usually when I have a rear-mounted tank and engine in the front, I usually use an automatic fire extinguisher, but for most tanks I don't. But I end up having really good games in this tank. This is one of my better performing tanks, and I wanted to show this particular sniping position, and I know that it's something that it's easy to find and a lot of people play it, but the reason why I'm showing it is because there are people who have not played the game very much, or they haven't played on this map yet, or they're new players, and I want everyone to have a chance to see what it's like to play this position. I remember when Paris first came out, people were afraid to play this position. So usually there's some action. Usually you're going to have 1, 2, or 3 enemy tanks to shoot at. If you notice where the OHO is a little bit on the right, usually there's also tanks that you can snipe at as they cross over that gap, but somebody has to spot them. But that was my mistake. I didn't aim in far enough. And I wasn't spotted. There it is. So I got 1,300 damage. I got 3 hits on the T-62A. And I received 1 hit. Took a lot of hit points away from me. I am a tier 8 tank, so I am more vulnerable to these enemy tanks. If this position dries up, you want to go to that central position, the E5 area. Because from over there, it's a secondary position that you can do a lot of sniping from, which is where I'm headed right now. So I often go here when I have nothing else to shoot at. And the regular rules apply. You want to make sure you don't get spotted. It's better if someone else is spotting those tanks. You can get caught in a crossfire here. It can be a slow game because the enemy knows not to go out in the open. So I missed a chance to hit that tank. My team is advancing, which means that the enemy is going to have to cross over in this gap or be killed. And you can see that there's an STRV-103 that's showing up behind me. I do have to be aware of what he's doing. And I did switch to high explosive rounds, which are more likely to do damage against that tank. Oh, that's too bad. Scores 8-2. This is a difficult position. Anytime you have one of these rear-mounted turrets, you're going to have difficulty playing in certain positions, and this is one of them. Scores 93.